All right, I wanted to take a second to share some of the things that I've been learning recently. I don't know if anybody is going to ever watch these other than myself or maybe my kids in the future, but I love symbolism. I love the scriptures. I love the stories about Christ. I love the I love I love to study. Um, I love to read every day, and I love to share what I learn as I'm studying. And so I think I'm just going to make a couple videos of me sharing some of the things that I've learned or that I'm learning currently. So a lot of the times as I'm studying the scriptures or reading a book, I'll have some type of symbolism or the Lord will teach me in some way, and I like to share it with people. So usually that's just my wife or my kids, but why not record it? So so I was reading recently in I was actually reading in the Quran. I've been trying to study all religions, and I've been reading the Quran, and I actually like it a lot. I've learned a lot from it, and I am only 175, oh, no, I'm actually 187 pages into it right now. But I go through and I've been highlighting a lot of things on it. But there was a section in there that talked about Noah and the ark, and it triggered something for me as I was reading it. And what I love to find what I like to call temple journeys, um, or I've heard it referred to as sacred journeys or anything that symbolizes going from where we're at now to the presence of God. So anything that symbolizes a redemption, right? Meaning Adam and Eve fell and they needed a redemption, right? So they went from this world back to the presence of God. So I feel like that type of symbolism is constantly hidden. Well, not hidden, but it's in the word, and it's constantly there. So for example, we'll take the prophet Noah, who was commanded to build an ark. So I like to think of this. So let's go back anciently and say that before us was this huge mountain, and on top of the mountain is where the Lord lived. And it was utterly impossible for anyone to ascend this mountain. It was too big, it was too grand, it was just impossible. It was too steep. So before us was this huge mountain. We wanted to go back to the presence of the Lord, but it was utterly impossible, right? Yet we had a prophet who built a boat and who was given a hard time for building this boat. And let's imagine, obviously I'm just making a story up here partly, that we were going around telling people that we were going to go back to the presence of God, or in other words, we were going to ascend this mountain. And the way that we were going to do it was not by climbing it, but by building a boat, right? Which would be utterly impossible, right? How in the world would we get a boat up to the top of a mountain? It's just not going to happen, right? So first of all, I like the symbolism of demonstrating with this story I'm making up the utter impossibility that it is for us to return back to the presence of God on our own through our own abilities, right? So, and to make it even more impossible, um, we have someone saying, "Oh, here's a boat, get on it because we're going back to the presence of God." Sounds crazy, right? It would take a lot of faith and a lot of trust in that person that's giving that instruction. So, of course, we know the story. A flood comes in, um, and well, but before I get to that part completely, a flood comes in. But one part that stuck out to me actually when I was reading the Quran, which I don't find in the Bible, at least the same way, was that that Noah, one of Noah's sons, refused to get on the boat, and I didn't know that. I thought that was kind of a sad part of the story here. So it says the ark floated with them in the waves, towering like mountains. And Noah called out to his son, who had separated himself from the rest. And this is Noah saying, "O my son, embark with us, and be not with the unbelievers." And then the son replied, "I will betake myself to some mountain. It will save me from the water." So in other words, he was just going to find his own mountain to go up. Um, so when he saw these rains coming in and that they were about to make this journey upwards, that he did not want to get on, right? He did not want to participate. He wanted to go climb up his own mountain to find safety some other way. Um, and so unfortunately, um, that son did not make it. So even the son of Noah, a prophet, lost one of his sons. I thought that was pretty sad, um, but anyway, going back to the story or the symbolism, we have the rains came, and those that were on the ark began to be lifted. They began to get closer to the presence of God, right? They became closer and closer, and those that did not get on it, right, were drowned and were unable to make that journey on their own, right, or to find safety really in any other way. So the waters go up, and now we have this boat that was on the ground floor is now reaching the heights of this mountain, right? Until we get to the point ultimately where the rain stops and then the floods waters start to descend. And of course, where does this boat rest itself? But on the top of this mountain, right? Fulfilling this impossibility of going from the bottom to the top, right? So I love this. I love the symbolism of how if we are willing and we trust and have faith in the Lord and get on the ark, so to speak, that we can that we can return back to the presence of God in the same way, right? Yet it was impossible for us to do it on our own. It was something that took an act of God to make that happen, right? It took an act of God to allow that to take place. And so I love the symbolism of that and how we must be willing and humble enough to enter the ark and to trust the Lord, and to follow that path to do so. Um, so that's one thing that I loved, that I learned recently, that I wanted to share. And see if there was anything else related to that. Well, now, of course, when the water descended, right? So they were lifted up to the presence of God, and then the waters descended, and then eventually everyone was let out, and then people slowly, probably descended, right? They weren't quite, they probably didn't stay in the presence of God, just like we do naturally, right? We get close to God, and then we maybe don't live quite like we should. Little by little, we start descending again, right? We start coming back down. And then maybe we were like, you know what, I like it down here a little bit better, right? And we start to forget God, right? Versus, do we stay with the ark? Do we stay in the presence of God? Do we strive to be with him always, right? I just like the visual of, it's a good question to ask ourselves, is where do we want to be? Where do we want to stay? And where are we trying to live? Um, so just a quick thought. I think I'll try to make an occasional short video. I feel like God teaches me things sometimes, and I like to jot them down, or I like to share them. So we'll just try that.